the man who has the most cert advisory as a single auditor on Byte 4 and Byte 8 hacking, and he's going to take you back with the DNS. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Vixie.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming. I do have the most cert advisories of any single author. It's not widely known that about half of the ones that are actually they're credited to Eric Allman for sending out are my bugs. So I stopped writing code, but that doesn't mean that I have stopped causing trouble. So I'm going to try and fit 2 talks in today. I was stunned by some of the stuff that Chris said. I wish I had brought a different slide back with me. So this is taking back the DNS, and I'm going to have to go through a little bit of history. I want to explain what we're doing. I want to describe it in terms of the RDL. And then I'm going to describe some of the details. I'll probably race through that stuff because I really want to get to the second talk. I'll be stopping for questions after the first topic before I launch on the second one to make sure that we give this one adequate treatment. So I want to call everybody's attention to the Conficker botnet or worm or virus or however you're categorizing it. It uses the DNS in order to locate its command and control servers. Actually, it's using the DNS to locate update servers, with the assumption being that the existing software will replace itself with more useful software as soon as they decide that they want to publish that software. But the way that the rendezvous works is that the existing infected computers will calculate domain names based on the time of day and the actual date on the calendar, and then look those domains up, and if it gets a hit, then it will go connect to an HTTP server on whatever is the address of that server. And, I'm sorry, I'm jet lagged. And if it is able to get a new binary from that server that is signed with the appropriate digital signature, then it will replace itself with that binary. So we thought this was very clever, and when the first versions of Conficker came out, we then essentially camped onto all the names that it might potentially use. There were, I think, 500 per day, and at first we had security companies who were actually buying those domains, both to sinkhole the botnet and to make sure that the bad guys could not possibly buy those domains, and people would buy them months in advance and so forth. Eventually, ICANN decided to help because it was pretty expensive, 500 names a day. Since the original infection vector, which was MSOA-067, had not been widely patched when this all went on, the bad guys still had the original entree into all those systems, and so they reinfected everything with an update. In other words, they didn't use the DNS to produce their first update, they just reinfected everything starting from scratch with a new variant that used 50,000 names per day. And instead of splitting them across just the generic top levels like .com and so forth, they generated names that were inside 110 different top level domains. 116 total if you count some of the secondary things like .ac, .uk or something like that. So that meant that in order for us to block them, we had to contact 110 different top level domain owners, most of which were country code domains. And they had their own local laws, their own policies, their own economics. English was sometimes not spoken. Time zones were inconvenient. And several of us looking at that said, okay, we have been outdone. And what we did for the first variant of Conficker we'll never do for the next one. This is crazy. We just can't possibly do this, can't keep up. I was wrong. We got all 110 country codes and so forth to actually block those names. And so we blocked 50,000 names a day for upwards of a year. And it was very impressive. We collected a lot of data. The worm did nothing but grow. The botnet is about 10 million strong now and is still healthy. We've done nothing to curtail its growth. We think we have kept it out of the hands of the bad guys, but they also have peer-to-peer and things like that they use to wire things together. So it's a little bit difficult to be sure that we have kept it out of the bad guys' hands, but we think we did a good job. The problem is there are an awful lot of other potential bad guys who are currently script kiddies, but they will eventually start writing their own tools. And they're watching this, and they can see how attractive this rendezvous method is. So if you take that, plus all of the sort of phishing domains that are registered every day, even without there's a loophole in the rules where you could register a name and give it back within 5 days and not have to pay for it. They fixed that loophole, but even with that loophole gone, it's very cheap to register a name. It doesn't even have to be a .com name. There's .biz, there's .info, and a whole bunch of country code domains. And so people who want to register something that sounds an awful lot like Lloyd's Bank of London, but is misspelled in some way, have no disincentive. There's no cost disincentive. There's usually no law against it. Lloyd's Bank, of course, is, I'm sure, registered every variant and misspelling they can think of, but there are always creative misspellings available. Domains are just amazingly cheap. And it turns out that the bad guys, my ideological opponents, the people who think that our computers ought to be working for them instead of for us, they're very good at figuring out how to use the infrastructure for their ends. And I suppose I have to commend them on their industry. But I wish to stop them anyway. So it bothers me when an infrastructure that I helped create is used by people I don't agree with to do things that I wish couldn't happen. But I have actually spent close on to 2 decades trying to make the DNS bigger, better, more robust, more reliable. And there's no way to differentiate service. There's just no way in the DNS to say, I want it to be really reliable unless you're a bad person. In which case I want it to work poorly for you. And so the moral of the story is that differentiated cooperation is necessary. When we create this infrastructure, when we maintain it, when we sort of add a lot of resources to it, it's important, in my opinion, that we, as the creators of that infrastructure, get some say in how it's to be used. So, set the Wayback Machine for the mid-90s. I created a company called Maps, which is spam, spelled backward. And at that company, we created the first real-time black hole list, the RDL. We were essentially sued out of existence by companies whose business models depended on sending unwanted email and who had much deeper legal budgets than we did. Nothing ever came to trial, but it turns out that they can bury you in procedural detail to the point where you can't afford to finish the case. So Maps is gone, but the RDL has lived on. I can't think of a single major email service that does not subscribe to some kind of database of the reputations of distant mail senders so that they can either reject based on the fact that it's a dial-up, or they can reject based on the fact that it's a known spammer, or that it's a known bot, or something like that. There are hundreds of producers of data in the format we invented for Maps. And so in one sense we failed because we were sued out of existence, but in another sense we succeeded because this format, the exact DNS format, and the ability to send mail, postfix, and all the other mail servers in the world to subscribe to this type of repetition data is still out there and it's still growing. However, that's just email, and I think we're all starting